Hey Canonites, welcome back. Well, at the end of the Xbox E3 briefing, we got a new story trailer for Halo Infinite. As usual, it's full of interesting and juicy details, so let's dive in and break it all down. Starting off at the start, of course, we have an unnamed UNSC pilot sitting in a Pelican as a warning goes off, though the design seems to be something we haven't seen before. The pilot and co-pilot seats are right next to each other, which did actually happen in Halo 2, rather than the co-pilot seat being behind the pilot seat like in Halo 3 or Halo Reach. The exit door is also centered, just like Halo 2, rather than off-center in most D-77 Pelicans. There's also an airlock between the cockpit and troop bay, which I don't think we've seen in any variant, or at least not one this big. Again, in some ways it's similar to Halo 2's Pelican, but overall I think this may be a new design, maybe something like a D-78. Or perhaps even an earlier model of Pelican like a D-76 or earlier. We'll have to ultimately wait and see, but I'm fairly confident this isn't a model we've seen before. Maybe heard mentioned before, but not seen. A warning is coming in over the intercom and the pilot goes to work. In this moment we can see his flight jacket has the Covenant War era UNSC logo, rather than the post-war variant we've seen in most recent games. Once again, old gear being used. While I still don't buy any notion of using older tech because it's less vulnerable to the created somehow, a popular notion around this time last year, it does make sense that those still fighting back would have to start using older tech as newer stuff started breaking down. They're using what's available, not too unlike Julim Dama's Covenant Remnant did, funny enough. As the pilot goes through the airlock, we can see a screen on the left wall with what I would guess to be the warning system's avatar, which is reminiscent of Auntie Dot's avatar from Halo Reach. I wouldn't be surprised if the warning system is in fact a dumb AI like Dot. If you aren't aware, in the Halo universe, dumb AI are a little more than programs with a personality. They can do what they're programmed to do extremely well, but they can't get creative, or in other words, they can't really choose. Almost everything the UNSC uses depends on AI, so even if smart AI are joining Cortana left and right, dumb AI would still be in use and now be in even higher demand. But that all assumes that this is a dumb AI and not a simple computer system. As we enter the Pelican's Bay, where the pilot attempts to seal a breach, it also looks much bigger than we're used to, or at least I think so, but again still evokes the classic D-77 look. After the pilot seals the breach, he falls onto the floor and an old message starts playing on a holo device. It's a pretty cool look at how messages are stored and played back in the 26th century. We've previously seen holographic pictures like in the Birth of a Spartan trailer for Halo Reach, or generic holographic tech like in Halos 4 and 5, but this is something new to my knowledge. As it turns, we see the green light turn to yellow, then red, as the pilot picks up the message. A lot of time has clearly passed, a year at least I'd guess, based on the length of his beard. Hair grows at a ½ inch per month on average, and that looks to be around 6 inches of growth at least. I'll be curious to find out if he's actually been drifting for a long time, or if he's been on some kind of extended mission. We'll have to wait and see. Though either way, I'm curious what he's been doing for, food and waste. Yeah. Anyway, as the message ends, we can see the Pelican Bay is dark and the pilot's breath is visible. He's on low power, conserving everything he has. Then the comm notes a signal is detected, a friendly tag. The pilot runs into the cockpit and tries to radio in whomever is approaching, identifying himself as Pelican Echo 216. That is almost certainly meant to evoke Echo 419 Foehammer from Halo CE. While he's fiddling with some controls, we can see S117 on the screen, but perhaps more interesting is, along the bottom, just barely, you can make out the words Local Ref Zeta, which would seem to reaffirm that the Halo ring in this game is indeed Zeta Halo. As he wipes away the frost, we get our first full look at our new Master Chief, along with a classic Halo tune, the same one that plays when we find Cortana in Halo 3. The Mjolnir design is pretty in line with what we saw in last year's trailer, though I think a bit bulkier. Hard to tell for sure since we never got a full look, but it seems to be. Moreover though, it's definitely inspired by the armor from Halo Legends' The Package and Forward Unto Dawn. The pilot somehow brings Chief aboard, and when he's set down, the whole Pelican shakes. I have to say I love that 343 really captured just how heavy Mjolnir is, probably about as well as Blur was able to in Halo Wars 2. You can feel and hear the weight. Right away we can see that this chief isn't the slender model from Halo 2 or 3 as I said before, much bulkier, a bit more like he's been in Halo 4 and 5, which I appreciate. He also has 117 printed on the left chest plate like the armors that inspired this design. I've seen a few people say that they don't enjoy it, but personally I find it to be just fine. What really stands out is the much more Halo CE or Halo 2 green, which lets the little bit of damage on his armor shine through very clearly. Interestingly, after scrubbing through the trailer, I didn't see any obvious shield emitter lights anywhere on this armor. Not on the back, not on the chest, not on the shoulders, nowhere. Obviously we have shields, we get the classic shield recharge sound a little later in the trailer, but no visible emitters. It's a small detail that I hope 343 adds before the final game. Moving on, the pilot notes that the suit's main power cells are fried, evoking a little bit of Halo 2 there, the suit having shut down and entered survival mode.
Looks like the main power cells are fried. Armor shut down. Triggering survival mode.
The plating was about to fail. There's viscosity throughout the gel layer. Optics, totally fried. And let's not even talk about the power supply.
Traditionally, Mjolnir has 90 minutes of air, so either the chief recently found himself in space, or survival mode is able to make the 90-minute air supply last longer. If the user were put into a coma-like state or a deep sleep of some kind, that could use less oxygen. It's also possible that this new armor has a much larger air supply or perhaps can put the wearer into a cryo-like stasis. And yes, this is a new armor, which we'll cover soon. The pilot plugs his power system into Mjolnir and powers it back up. And let's talk about this boot up, as there is a ton of information that flashes past very quickly. We first see a series of lines tracing down the visor, which seems to be a reference to the respawning in Halo 3. Then we see the text VISR, or visor, followed by powering up, visor being a heads-up display technology in the Halo universe. Introduced to the lore in Halo 3 ODST, it's been a mainstay ever since. All of Halo 5's visors have descriptions about what version of visor they are and what they do. More text scrolls by, and eventually we get this, which has a ton of information. First, we can see that this is indeed Gen 3, as predicted. It was created by the Materials Group on February 10th, 2559. The Materials Group are the primary manufacturers of Mjolnir and helped develop the armor with Dr. Halsey. Speaking of Halsey, we can see that she last modified the armor on September 19th, 2561. So, we now have a new date for Halo Infinite. Last year's trailer had the date May 27th, 2560 in a Pelican cockpit. This shows we're at least in late 2561, if not even later. I wouldn't be surprised if this game was set in 2562 in fact, to evoke that classic 2552 year from the Bungie games. And speaking of the date, September 19th was the same day the UNSC Pillar of Autumn discovered Alpha Halo back in Halo CE. That's a pretty cool Easter egg. At the top we can see the Mjolnir BIOS version, which is 12.22.19. The version in Halo 5 was 12.22.12. A little further down we can see that the BIOS is a beta version. Beyond that, a series of codes flash by. These are actually Xbox Live codes that can be redeemed for 1 month of Game Pass Ultimate. It's a pretty cool gift to Vigilant fans. More text scrolls by about Visor that's unimportant until we get here, where we can see prepping AI counter-intrusion measures. So, it looks like the UNSC is upgrading software, at least on the Mjolnir side, so that the created can't control it. Further on, we can see the system loading a program called System Peril Distributed Reflex, or SPIDER for short. Fans of the Halo 2 ARG I Love Bees will recognize that system, as that was where SPIDER was introduced. In I Love Bees, SPIDER was a program in UNSC AIs meant to repair them when they became too damaged to function properly, and it would actually get rid of harmful programs. Here, it seems like SPIDER has been repurposed to prevent AI intrusion. Several more systems boot up, all being Game Pass codes, all passing, until we get to failed checks and a note of an absent AI. These checks include, in order, System, Power, Life Support, Visor, Very High Frequency, Ultra High Frequency, Weapon, Ability, Run, and Service. Or at least those are my best guesses. PCA I'm at a bit of a loss for. When asking around on Twitter, the Eld suggested Piezoelectric Capillary Array. If you aren't intimately familiar with Mjolnir's workings, that's essentially the system that enhances a user's strength. You can check out my video on the history of Mjolnir if you want more in-depth details. I'm not convinced that's what PCA stands for, but it fits, and I'd love if it were the case. It's a great deep lore cut, if true. The ability and run checks both stood out, as they would, at first glance, suggest Halo 5-like gameplay with Spartan abilities and sprint. But that's wild speculation, so don't take it as gospel. I'm still praying that at least they get rid of sprint. I can take everything else, but please get rid of sprint. The final check is for the presence of an AI, which is of course absent. That finishes the Mjolnir boot up, and we can get a full look in the inside of this Pelican, seeing tools, cables, boxes, and more scattered about. To the right, we can see what resembles a Halo 3 Marine helmet. The pilot exclaims, "We're going home!" then notes that there's a problem with the servos in the Chief's gauntlets. This prompts the Chief to check his hands, and in his right hand we have an empty AI chip. This kind of evokes the opening to Halo 3.
Don't make a girl a promise if you know you can't keep it.
On the chip, we can see the serial number CTN0453-0. During a 343 stream last year, we got a look at the E3 2018 trailer and how it was made, and during that we got a better look at the AI chip, which had this same serial number. Cortana's serial number was CTN0452-9. I doubt that's a coincidence. Chief plugs the chip into his helmet, and some more text appears on his HUD saying "Weapon Containment Device Inserted." We've never had an AI chip referred to as a weapon containment device before, so that's interesting. We'll circle back to that later. At this point, the Chief disconnects himself from some power cables and asks for a status report, which catches the pilot off guard. He says that the Chief needs to see something, so the Chief heads into the cockpit. In a moment that perfectly shows the strength of a Spartan, he easily pushes the door open, our pilot having previously had a lot of trouble opening it. Chief looks out the window and sees a damaged Halo ring, and the pilot says, "We lost. We lost everything. There's nothing left for us here." There's another line there too, but I couldn't never make it out. Focusing on the ring, it is, again, severely damaged. A battle took place here of epic proportions. Interestingly, it looks like it's being held together by some kind of energy. That, or this is supposed to be atmosphere or water or something else, or a combination of things, drifting out from the damaged components. As a quick aside, I've talked in the past about how Halo games will sometimes reuse ideas that weren't implemented before. For a few quick examples, in Halo 2, Bungie wanted people to experience the drop to Delta Halo's surface, seeing out of the drop pod as you were dropped. This idea was later reused in the opening of Halo 3 ODST. It was intended for you to meet a living Forerunner in Halo 3, but things changed, and this was instead done in Halo 4. And of course, Bungie originally had the idea for Cortana to turn into an antagonist in a version of Halo CE, which was used in Halo 5. With this damaged Halo ring being the setting for Halo Infinite, I'm reminded that the original intent for the ring in Halo CE was that it would be damaged, having been abandoned for eons and starting to fall into disrepair. We got a version of the damaged Halo in Halo 3 as well. Moving on, the ship surges with electricity as it comes under attack, one would logically assume from created forces, and the cockpit windows are aglow with a strange light. The pilot says they need to run, but Chief, grabbing an assault rifle, says they need to fight. Interestingly, the AR here looks to be an MA-37, the AR from Halo Reach, and one once favored by the UNSC Army. The pilot closes the airlock as the Chief enters the bay doors open, and Chief, in what I can only assume is a nod to Halo 2's announcement trailer, jumps out as we get the classic Halo theme playing and the Halo Infinite logo appears. The trailer ends with an energy beam being shot out of what looks like a control room. The music changes to something inspired by Halo 3's Luck, which played when Chief was falling to Earth at the start of Halo 3 and Cortana was talking about why she chose him. This is quite appropriate because we get voiceover from Cortana talking about why she chose Chief, which we'll get to in a second. Focusing on the scene, Chief is seen approaching the center of this control room, this presumable control room, where the holographic display shows the once whole Halo ring as something causes the destruction we saw earlier. There are several planets circling around as part of the display with a large blue blob at the center of it all. The hologram collapses together and Cortana says,
I chose you because you were special. I knew we would be perfect together.
As the Chief pulls the data chip from his helmet. The screen cuts to black and Cortana says,
And I was right.
So, we gotta talk about this ending and that AI chip. What the hell is going on here? At this point, my best guess is that the AI chip has some kind of program, likely written up by Dr. Halsey, meant to deal with Cortana. I've seen some people think that it might be intended to fix whatever made Cortana go mad with power, effectively turning her quote-unquote good again, resetting the status quo of the Halo games. I can certainly see an attempt being made to save Cortana. It can make sense that they try to do that, but if they try to do that, I don't think it'll work. And in fact, it better not work. If 343 were to seriously make Cortana an ally again, they'd effectively ruin Halo 4. Halo 5 got very damn close, and this would definitely do it. But I don't think that's what's going to happen. I don't think that's what's going on here. A better possibility I've seen, and one I agree with, is that the chip contains a program to kill Cortana, or at least attempt to. The fact that the chip has a serial number starting with CTN is ultimately extremely interesting, but at the moment it's hard to nail down a specific significance. Either way, I will say that Cortana's line delivery does not make it sound like she's necessarily happy to see John. She almost sounds lamentful at the end. It's interesting to note, however, that the chip we saw in last year's trailer was lit up as though it were carrying an AI, and the back of the Chief's helmet is lit up on the Infinite cover art. So maybe Chief does capture Cortana or get a quote-unquote new Cortana, as I talked about last year. And speaking of the cover art, let's talk about that quickly. In the background, you can see huge chunks of the Halo ring floating in the air, like someone or something is disassembling the ring, or rearranging it maybe? We know Professor Ellen Anders has the know-how to do that, so maybe she's involved here? I'm still thinking she'll be involved in Halo Infinite in some manner. Or maybe Cortana is doing this as part of some plan to secure her rule on the galaxy? It's impossible to say, but these floating sections have me excited for the gameplay possibilities. Anyway, I think that's all for this trailer and the cover art. I've gone over everything I could find, be it by myself or thanks to other sleuths in the Halo community. Before we go though, I will point out one notable absence from this trailer: Blue Team. At this point, I'd practically call it confirmed that they won't be in this game physically, and I have a sinking feeling that they won't even be mentioned. I hope I'm wrong about that latter part at the very least. And if they are mentioned, I really hope we don't hear that Fred, Linda, and Kelly are all gallivanting together off somewhere while John is going it solo. That just feels so wrong to me. If they are going to be separated, I hope that each member of Blue Team is on their own mission, the remnants of the UNSC splitting them up because they feel each one is a valuable asset that can do more good spread out than together or something. I don't know. But what do you think about the trailer and the stuff I've brought up here? How do you feel Halo Infinite is shaping up? Let me know in the comments below. That's all for now, but stay tuned as I'll be covering more Halo news as it comes out. We're slated to get more Infinite details on Tuesday, so look forward to that. In the meantime, this has been Halo Canon. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider subscribing, and if you really love me, hit that notification bell and leave a thumbs up. These both really help out the channel. I wouldn't be where I am now without your views and support, so once again, thank you. Keep on being awesome, Canonites.